Hello, everyone. My name is Lara, and I am the founder and editor of Muse Factory magazine. It is a magazine that is dedicated to highlighting the life and the work of artists and also celebrating different cultures around the world. So, today I'm coming to you all with an awesome conversation that I just literally recorded in the last few minutes with my best friend. This is a person who has been my best friend for almost 15 years, probably my oldest friend. Her name is Victoria Garcia. She actually works for the Sunrise Movement in the fundraising department, and she has a really interesting perspective in general because she came to environmental activism. For those that don't know, the Sunrise Movement is an environmental activist organization, but she came at it through it wasn't a direct path. She first started out interested in the fashion industry, but made a pivot and then later entered the environmental activist space. But she's also a painter. She also is a practitioner of yoga. So she, in general, is a very holistic person with an interesting perspective, both on creativity and where she sources her inspiration from, but also in her outlook and the things that she finds really important as somebody in the environmental activist space. So I hope you all enjoy. This is my best friend, Victoria.
Yeah, so started really getting interested in the fashion industry probably around like middle school, so like 13, 14. And
Yeah.
I always have really tended to be very introverted and shy. And so I tended to compensate with the way that I dressed. I was very like out there, quote unquote, with my ensembles, and I guess that was like my way to like communicate like my more extroverted side without actually having to speak about it. But what I think is so amazing about like fashion as an industry and like its impact on our culture is that like as people we say so much about who we are and what we believe in and what we want and what we think of ourselves by the way we dress, and it just communicates so much with just a single glance, and it's like one of the most recognizable like signifiers of like a time and place. And so
Yeah.
I think like that was what really like fascinated me and inspired me to like go to New York, which is like the fashion capital of like the US, like if not like one of the major fashion capitals of the world. And so that's
Right.
what originally like brought me to NYU. And so I did like internships with stylists and like magazines like Marie Claire, and just very like bottom of the ladder, not glamorous jobs at all.
Yeah.
And like I was still very excited and thrilled to be there. But then as I learned more about the environmental impact of the fashion industry, it started to put a bit of a stain on this otherwise very like glamorous and aspirational world. But like when you learn about, I think this was around the time like the collapse at like Rana Plaza happened in Bangladesh, and that really I think was my first introduction to learning about like the labor practices that the fashion industry relies on, and especially like fast fashion. So like
Right.
companies like Walmart, your like your Expresses, your any like clothing store at the mall you can think of, and
Right.
also high luxury brands would rely on really cheap labor and exploiting mainly women of color and young girls to create these items that people will spend less money than they would on a sandwich. And so
Yeah.
that started to make me question, like, is this really what I want to be doing? Is this like an industry I want to put like my body and my efforts and my energy behind?
Right.
And so yeah, it definitely like was a moment of crisis because I had been enthralled and so focused on becoming a part of this industry that like, and then to have that path be like starting to come into question was like a bit of an identity crisis for me.
Yeah.
And so once I left school, I started like learning more about like labor leaders like Dolores Huerta, you know, out in California, like leading the labor strikes with Cesar Chavez. There are so many amazing activists like Greta Thunberg from Sweden, who's really like done so much to bring attention to the climate crisis in a really like short amount of time, even though activists have been working on this for decades.
Right.
But yeah, so all of that is to say that now I am uh, fully focused on trying to do whatever I can to help, you know, avert the climate crisis in the U.S. As much as we can by pushing politicians to be bold and enact like bold transformative change to like reshape our economy and society to prepare and protect the most vulnerable communities in this country from the worst effects of the climate crisis, because it always happens that the people, you know, who do the least to cause the problem suffer the most, and that's
Right.
just completely unjust. And so hopefully with this new administration we have a chance.
Hopefully. Yeah, I hope
Yeah.
so too. Okay, so there's a lot to unpack there. I feel like the whole like the trajectory of how like you like switched gears from, you know, I remember the Vogue covers that still grace your walls, right? Like I remember all that. And so the way that you pivoted, partially and because you were in love with fashion, right? Because you had this kind of like you had to be there to see what was going on behind the veil
Mm-hmm.
to then make that pivot. So can you I want to get into talking about like your art and your influences there, but just since we started with the activism, so can you talk about how you found out about Sunrise and like what Sunrise's mission is and how you got involved?
Yeah. So Sunrise Movement has been around since about 2017, and it was founded by a group of college activists who like got their start in divestiture efforts to get their universities to divest from fossil fuel stocks.
Mm-hmm.
And the moment that I first heard of Sunrise was when they occupied Nancy Pelosi's congressional office after the 2018 midterms. And they were like really pushing forward this idea that was just in its infancy of the Green New Deal, and which is this major governing vision to like stop climate change and create millions of good jobs. And I think I was just amazed at like seeing this group of young people, because they're all like 20 somethings, and some are like teenagers and some are even younger, they're like in middle school, and just to see them like coming to like the office of the most powerful Democrat in Congress was just so awe-inspiring, because I for so long I felt powerless as a young person to like, what can I do to like fix the things that I see are unjust in this world, and to see like young people actually going out and doing that, like moving past their fear and like making a stand and saying you need to prioritize this, because in 12 years, at that point in 2018, the UN said that we have 12 years to avert, to change course and stop us like basically from going off the cliff to the past the point where any like damage from climate change would be irreversible. And it just was not a priority with the Trump administration. Obviously
Not at all.
Trump was and is a as Jane Fonda says, a fossil fuel president. And so yeah, and so after the midterms, I just started following them on social media, signed up for their email list, and just like kept hearing all this coverage, like in outlets like Vox. And then I heard our executive director Varshney Prakash being interviewed by Ezra Klein, and you know we're longtime hardcore Ezra fans.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. So I was really amazed that this like really substantive and like clear vision for a brighter future, and like a plan to like, you know, get the US government to take stopping the climate crisis like seriously, was being communicated by like someone like my age, and I'm only in my late 20s. We'll keep that a mystery.
Yeah.
but yeah, and then I found that they were hiring in DC, and we're local to the DMV area, and so I was like, well, I'll just throw my hat in the ring, give it a shot, and never expecting to like make it anywhere or hear back from anyone, and then just got really lucky and found like my little crew of lefty progressives, and just felt like I finally had like a job that like felt like a connected to a larger purpose, like outside of myself. And that's what really like helps me keep going. So Sunrise itself, the mission of the movement is young people fighting to stop climate change and create millions of good jobs in the process. And the plan is to make climate an urgent priority in our community. So that's like talking to our friends, having one-on-ones and talking to our family and then other people, and just like building like that grassroots support for the Green New Deal, and like exposing the corrupting influence of fossil fuel executives on our politics, and most importantly, electing political leaders who will stand up for us and like protect the interests of their communities who elected them to be there, and not be beholden to like corporate interests. Right. And so our big mission is to make the decade of the Green New Deal that we're entering like a reality. And the Green New Deal has like 5 main objectives, which is to first end greenhouse gas emissions relatively quickly, so hopefully within the next 10 to 15 years, create millions of good jobs, modernize US infrastructure, and secure a healthy environment for all while promoting justice and equity in all levels of society for all people.
Right. You would think that those are universal things that wouldn't be hard. Like, you can go in as far as just like even updating American infrastructure. We use these things every day. I mean, this is the air we breathe and the water we drink. So some things you may not, will just fly past my head.
No, you totally get it. Like, that's literally like some of our main posters that we create like for actions. It's like, this is for the air we breathe and the water we drink, and for the places that we call home, because it's really like a fight for our survival and a fight to like make this country something that actually like holds true to the values it says to promote, like, which is justice and equality for all. Which as of yet has not been a reality for everyone, but we're all a work in progress.
Okay, so if this is the first time somebody's hearing about Sunrise, or they want to get involved in some way, what would you recommend to do?
First off, you can find us on our website. It's sunrisemovement.org. And we have local chapters, which we call hubs. So we have about over 400 across the country. And we try and really promote activity, not just in like major city centers. So it's like, if there's not a hub in your area or close to you, it's like, you can totally start your own. Just like, all it takes is like 3 people, if that's all you have, that's a great start. And just follow us on our social media. We have a really good Twitter game. Gotta shout out our comms team. They just kill it every day. bring the sass and the facts. So that's a good first start.
Awesome. Okay, so now I want to pivot a little bit more towards you and your art. So we did talk about how you had your start in fashion and you made this change into activism, and you mentioned some awesome activists that, if anybody's interested, they can go ahead and look them up. And now I want to talk about, you are, in my view, very spiritual in some ways, but not like in the way that people would think. Like, I feel like you're very grounded and rooted in like creative self-expression, and that via the yoga that you do and kind of movement based expression, but also like artistic expression. What's your kind of philosophy on life and creativity, and what was your journey there?
Yeah. Well, I think it's like, it's just a very human urge to like make something outside of ourselves, you know, like we're always trying to make our mark on the world, to like, you know, be able to point to something and say like, this proves I was here, you know, and this proves that I like gave something of myself for others to share. And I think that that's really special because it's hard for me to connect with people like one-on-one. I'm a very guarded person, but I love that my art offers that kind of like door to like start a conversation and start a connection with something that I make.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think I love that fact about anything, like whether it's a book or a film or a photo or like a dance piece or a music piece, you know, that you create, like anything that you yourself, like, you know, that you put yourself in, I think is a really amazing thing, because if you can like use that to connect with others, then that's all that, you know, humans want, is to like be loved and accepted, and like our works are one of the ways we can do that. Yeah.
Definitely. So this, we can now pivot towards the things that directly influence and inspire you, because you're an avid reader. You're interested in like so many different cultures and traditions. And I think you can see bits and pieces of that in your paintings. So talk a little bit about where you pull that inspiration from.
Yeah. Oh man, I remember in college I took this art class that was all about like Mexican mythology. My father is born and raised in Mexico. I love that I have this link to this really like ancient and like really special culture that has roots like way back on this continent, like before like Europeans like came here and colonized it all. But yeah, I've just always been inspired by like mythology, like whether it's like from cultures like Greece with their like pantheon of gods, or like Japanese mythology, where they have a lot of like, you know, a really like deep like storytelling tradition that like weaves in like spiritual like animals and like just think like things like that you would see in like a Hayao Miyazaki film. I love the idea of like there's this one story like of like foxes, like they're called like kitsunes, and they like guard like temples, and I just love this idea of like this other like world that is like ours, but you know, just like has a little bit of element of like magic and mysticism to it. So yeah, I find a lot of inspiration from stories like that, and just anything that like comes from nature. Like I'm, you know me, I'm a big plant mom.
Yeah.
I would live in a treehouse if I could. But yeah. So and I like to mix a lot of my mediums. So you'll find
Yeah.
like jewelry pieces, or like mosaic tiles in my paintings, or like gold foil. I just really love to be able to like kind of collage all these different mediums together, instead of just relying solely on like paint or charcoal, just to, you know, mix it up and add something a little something you might not expect.
Right. I think that's the interesting thing about it. I think your use of gold foil, it kind of like harkens back to, you know, that like those medieval manuscripts, right? Like, and kind of like those older periods where, you know, people used gold foil to like, you know, decorate these, you know, these commissioned pieces of art, or in these like holy books and things like that. So it kind of has you know, you have that modern feel in the style of your work, but then also you have that sort of like old mystical feeling, and that's what I really love about it. What made you think? You're welcome. What made you think, like, at the beginning? Because I remember like looking at your work, even, you know, years back when we were both in high school.
Yeah.
But like you had that idea. Yeah, you had that idea, like you were always mixing mediums. um and so like what made you think, like, you know, one day to take a piece of like found jewelry, or jewelry that, you know, you were like no longer interested in wearing, but you have it around, so to like use it,
Yeah.
right? Like what made you think about, you know, incorporating that into your paintings? Was it like a natural thing for you, or did you like reference that somewhere else, or like how did that come about?
Yeah. No, honestly, it's probably because I wanted to like include something but didn't know how to like represent it like in two dimensions. So I probably was just like, I'm just gonna stick this on here. But I also like definitely, I think I get a lot of inspiration and references from like mosaics, like the ones that I think it was Ravenna. Don't quote me on that, but like there's this like beautiful mosaic where it's like gold cubes, and it just like looks so beautiful, like with the light shining off of it. And I think I just like, because I couldn't get that same quality and effect from like paint,
Mm-hmm.
I just was like, well, there's no rule that says I can't put, you know, like a gem on a canvas. You know, it's like
Right.
I'm gonna make this what I want, you know. And I love
Exactly.
that creative freedom that comes with you know, making things for yourself instead of like
Right.
feeling so like restricted and bound by, you know, the principles of fine art.
Right, exactly. So I feel like that's the thing that's like so organic about you, is that first of all you have this like purpose and this drive to like make positive change, but then also like you don't let stringencies as to like what, you know, what good art is supposed to be or not supposed to be, right? Like you don't let that get in your way, and you go with the feeling that you have, and then you create something new with it that wouldn't have otherwise been created.
I spend a lot of time in my room, so you know, I'm left alone a lot with my thoughts, and sometimes, you know, wild things come out of it, come out of this head.
So you mentioned your plants, and I think that really like I think also when the conversation that we're having now is paired against your paintings and like, you know, and your plants, like everything, it like comes together, like it's clearly one person with like this common thread. So talk about, like, give us a little bit of detail about your love of plants and how you care for them, and what it means to have like plants in your environment, and your kind of philosophy on that sort of thing.
Yeah. Well, as I said, I spend a lot of time in my room, so I don't get to go outside that much. And especially this year, in the year of the Rona,
Yeah.
you know, you want to try and like bring the outdoors in. And so it's always like been, plants have always been a presence in my home. My mom has a green thumb and has always had plants around, and I definitely like took up that mantle, and like to the extreme maybe.
Yeah.
But I don't know, just plants make you happy, you know. They just bring a smile to your face, like, and they help, you know, make the days seem a little bit more enjoyable when you can, like, if especially now when we're all stuck indoors and there's not much novelty in our lives at the moment. It's really like, I don't know, it's really like a special moment when I can like look over to my little like plant corner and see like, oh, this baby has a new bud, or like this one has like grown like 2 inches taller, and I remember when it was just a wee little bud. And I don't know, they give you oxygen, so always need to keep the fresh air circulating. But I will say, um, it's a struggle keeping them safe from my cat, because she sees plants and she's like, ah, a snack.
A snack. It's hard, man. It's
Yeah.
hard to keep plants. Like my mint is dying, but my aloe's doing good because aloe needs like no water.
True.
That would be my plant, my recommended plant to people who are beginners is to, but you definitely encouraged my exploration in that area. And it has been in the past year, especially, it's been like, it's like caring not for a pet rock, but like a real, like a pet rock, but like a living thing, you know? It's like, yeah, like it's not a pet, like you won't have to take it to the vet or something, but it's just something that's like constantly there, and it'll tell you if it's happy or sad, and then you kind of tend to it. It gives you like a little bit of purpose, you know?
Definitely. I was just gonna say, yeah, it's like something does need me, you know? It's like if I were to go away, who would feed my plants?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, for my last question, so I know you're currently working on a painting that is not going to be on the website, but just give me a little bit, because the Spring Awakening will be on the site. So give me a little bit of info about what you plan to do for that series, and what you're working on now.
Yeah. So the Spring Awakening piece is something I completed around like early 2019, and I was really like, you know, I love the character of Poison Ivy, and I just love that, like, any fictional character who has green skin, I just, you know, adore, like Wicked, like Alphaba in Wicked.
Yeah.
And so I was really inspired to like just like have a painting that was all shades of green. And so, and when you think of green, you know, you think of plants and you think of spring. And I was like, well, you know, going back to Greek mythology, they like personify like the seasons as like people. And so I was like, well, she's going to be spring. And her sister, the piece I'm working on right now is going to be in all shades of blue. And so when I think of blue, I think of winter. And she is going to be winter sleep. So spring is very bright and new and like awake, and winter is very, you know, like chill and like low key, and you know, most of the natural world goes to sleep. And so she's going to be like icy blue with a giant snowflake. So I'm just trying to get that done before the end of 2020, which is pretty soon. But I feel like a lot of the world has been kind of in the state of sleep this year. We've all been like forced to, for those of us who've been lucky enough to like stay indoors, we've all been forced to kind of, you know, like slumber and, you know, be a little bit more stationary. And so I just felt like this is the year to finish this piece because it's very timely. I'm going back and forth whether to have like a summer, because it's like very similar to spring where they're just like, you know, blooms, but I might shift and make it like round out the quartet with like the wind element. So it could be like it could double as like seasons, or it could double as like elements, so like earth, water, air, and fire, and just like kind of tailor the color schemes to that. Yeah, I always go back to like elements and, you know, groupings of to help like guide my work and feel like I have a plan, because most of the time I'm just winging it.
I think that's like the most honest thing somebody can say, because I feel like we're all winging it, you know what I mean? So Victoria, you're my best friend. Thank you for being on here.
Thanks. No, thanks, girl. I'm just, you know, I'm just trying to learn and, you know, not be a shitty person.
Yeah, that's
the most most I could hope for at this moment.
that's a good mantra to live by.
Yeah, it's like, don't be an asshole.
Yeah.